Hi, Karen Romano Young here with A Girl, a Raccoon, and the Midnight Moon. Written by me and read by me, illustrated by Jessixa Bagley, and published by Chronicle Kids in 2020. Chapter 44, Found. Still, Halloween, October 31st. Pearl screamed. She screamed just as loud as she had when she first saw the head was missing. But this was a different scream, a very different scream. For one thing, nobody heard it. Why? 1, she had the raccoon head over her face. 2, Bruce's window was closed. 3, everybody outside was making so much noise they wouldn't have heard her even if the window was open. And 4, Pearl cut her scream short. She choked on it because the raccoon head had been hiding Vincent's head, so someone must have put it there. Who? And when? And why? Oh, why? The thought of it ripped through Pearl's imagination. All the old ideas about the crime, college student, neighborhood punk, homeless man, seemed innocent, funny, so much better than this. The possibility that Bruce, her Bruce, Mom's Bruce, their Bruce, had left his office one night when he was working late and made his way to the garden in the dark. What could he have been thinking when he pulled the stone head off the spindle? How could he have done this? Then again, who else was here in the dark of night? Who else had the strength to carry the head? And who else would Nichols work so hard to protect because Bruce had been so kind and protective of him? Pearl! That insistent yell came from Francine, stuck waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Pearl went thundering down the stairs, clutching the rail, half blind and half dazed. What was she going to do? Who was she going to tell? Francine? Alice? Mom? Francine said, "That's you, Pearl, right? Hey, you got the costume." "You bet," said Pearl. Her voice inside the raccoon's head sounded echoey, shaky. "Check it out, Pearl." That voice was Oleg's. She turned her head, saw his blonde hair through an eye hole, saw a brand new stone head in his arms. "Vincent's here!" Oleg was quivering, thrilled and proud. "Come on," Francine said. "Everyone's out there waiting for us." She put a stony grip on Pearl's furry elbow and hauled her across the back hall. Pearl was in danger of tripping over her own furry tail. Francine said, "The mayor's not here and Bruce is not here, but Simon says you've got to get up there now and do whatever you're going to do, or people might start leaving. Rock Lady, then the costume parade, and then the band's going to play." Where was Mom? Pearl's stomach quaked. Her face inside the costume head was sweaty from the 1,000 crazy feelings running through her. But Francine was already pushing open the garden door, walking like a statue, barely coming to life. The change of pace caught everybody's attention. People laughed and gasped and stood aside. Little kids pointed and screeched. Pearl held on to Francine's hand and pulled her through the crowd. At the edge of the circle of space around Vincent's pedestal, Simon handed Pearl a microphone. "Just push this button," he said. Pearl goggled at Simon through the eye holes of the raccoon head and bellowed in his ear through the raccoon's mouth, "Simon, I have to tell you." Francine whacked Pearl on the elbow. "Turn that mic on and start." The round, cut-out raccoon eyes didn't let Pearl see peripherally, so she had to turn her whole head to see all the people. There were an awful lot of them. She carefully lifted her baggy, furry legs to step on stage, and suddenly, Pearl felt herself push the button. A sidebar about New York City. My grandmother once told me that New York had layers. Layers of people, layers of animals. You couldn't tell just by looking what layers somebody had, how unique they were, and nobody was only one layer. You might be a homeless girl who worked in a kitchen by day and danced ballet with a hip-hop boy in the subway at 3 a.m. Or a well-fed fat cat who still preferred hunting rats at night. Or a princely, long-locked man with a fuzzy-headed daughter who spent afternoons at a climbing wall. New Yorkers are really like that. But the other thing I've learned about New York is that sometimes the layers disappear, stop mattering, and for no reason at all, or every reason, everyone seems the same. By M.A.M. Pearl began the way she always began. So, once there was a poet. She had been telling herself pieces of this story about Vincent for so long, she didn't quite know where all the rises and falls were, but she never had any problem starting off. This time, Pearl made the starting point in her story a blackout. Imagine the power is out, and there is no television, no radio, no internet, she intoned. The people of this city have become desperate for stories, for news, for poems, for songs, for words that aren't their own, to give them new ideas and new pictures in their heads. Vincent, the famous poet of New York, reaches out her hand, points a finger, and all along Lancaster Avenue, a different kind of power takes hold. Francine stood to one side, leaning forward as though cradling a book. Gradually, the audience shifted their focus to her, while keeping an eye on Pearl, too. Pearl intoned, "She wants." She turned to Francine, who stretched out a wavering hand. "She wants," Pearl said more urgently. Now everyone's eyes turned to Francine. Her glimmering raised palm begged insistently toward the crowd, refusing to be ignored. "What does she want?" said Oleg on cue, and others took up the cry. "What does she want?" the audience called. "What does she want? What does she want?" This was Oleg's big moment. He strutted along, the crowd dividing to let him pass, then pressing in again quickly to see the new stone head he was carrying. Simon and Mom appeared and helped Oleg lift the head, and the other band members came forward to help them raise it higher. The teenagers climbed up the pedestal and lifted the head into place. The crowd clapped and cheered. In the blackout darkness, Vincent rained down stories, Pearl continued. She felt light inside her heavy costume. The drama in her voice seemed to come from a deep, thrilled place it had never come from before. The stories were heard by the Raccoons first. They were closest to the statue and felt its energy. After all, they had learned to read from Vincent's own poems. They had moved into the library building for shelter and expanded their literacy to our whole library. Some faces looked sort of blank, some skeptical, others seemed rapt. Pearl carried on. Before long, Vincent the person was gone, and her statue took her place, here in this very garden, here under these trees, where the raccoons made their homes. It was Vincent who brought them to the library, as she brings the human reading raccoons of Lancaster Avenue here tonight. The crowd cheered. And now Vincent has come to life again through this dancer. Francine, the stone statue, made a slow, heavy twirl, and through this rockhound and his stone carver friend. Oleg pulled a young woman into the light, earning a rousing cheer, and together they took a bow. And through this rock band, Lowe's Coyotes struck a chord. Pearl finished. Today, Vincent is once more turning the library into a place of refuge. Only this time, it's a literal as well as literary shelter for people who need stories. Nocturnal animals with a newspaper of their own, reaching out with nighttime news. Daytime people needing information, education, or entertainment. Raccoon kits and human kids learning to read and falling in love with books. Who are they? Who? Reading raccoons, Simon roared. Francine, now standing on the amp, pumped her fist. Human and animal, they want stories, Pearl called. Reading raccoons, the crowd called back. They want to know what the new head looks like, said Pearl, to see if it's really Vincent and her family of reading raccoons. They're getting library cards because they're part of the library now, just like the, invited Pearl, reading raccoons. They're reading books and getting educated. Reading raccoons. They're smart and getting smarter. Reading raccoons. Pearl recited the rhymes she'd made up. Their nose in a book and a book in their paws, turning the pages with their toes and their claws. Are you here? Yelled Oleg. The crowd roared, yeah, we're here. Then Pearl began a new chant. Reading raccoons are here. A roar went up across the garden. Pearl pumped both paws in the air. Reading raccoons are here. Reading raccoons. The audience chanted with her, and she felt the power of them lifting her. Simon pulled a big book, in fact it was the New York State Atlas, and put it into Pearl's hands. Pearl stood tall, stretching her arms out toward the library, and held up the atlas, flapping the covers above her head as if the book was a bird. It was a signal to Mary Ann and her relatives in the trees. Just then there was a rolling sound, a flutter of flapping paper, and a series of gentle whoops as the strung-up, scrolled-out props made of cardboard painted to look like book covers filled with old pages from the moon bounced down on strings from the treetops. The big books flapped above the crowd. The books opened their covers like wings and flew, and out of them came stories. Pearl extended a hand toward the audience. Book characters? Let's march! Shouting, laughing, chattering, the kids ran toward her. With one paw, Pearl grabbed the hand of a girl in a mermaid costume, and with the other, she lifted the microphone and held it steady. And now, she said, introducing the pride of Lancaster Avenue, Los Coyotes! The band sprang forward from the shelter of the amps. Simon took the mic. 1, 2, 3, 4, he cried, and the music blasted out. Everyone in the costume contest, and quite a few who weren't, formed a long conga line to dance to Los Coyotes' jolly Halloween music. Here was pink-haired Rosita from the Rosebud Bodega, Tallulah, Khadijah, Elsa and Millie, and Jaime and his little brothers, plus Gully himself. And who was that little lady on his arm? Francine's granny. Humpty Dumpty Alice and Mad Hatter Dinesh joined the conga line. Last of all marched Francine, dancing better than anyone else and certainly louder. You're a tap-dancing rock lady, yelled Pearl. You bet. The last person in the parade approached the stage. She was a tall, thin, dark-skinned woman in a beautiful suit with a jack-o'-lantern in her hand. Even looking through the raccoon head's crooked eyes, Pearl could not mistake who she was. Pearl bounded onto the stage and thrust herself into the band and grabbed the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lancaster Avenue Library's biggest fan, Her Honor, the Mayor of New York City. See you tomorrow.